Great is your faithfulness, O God. You wrestle with the sinner's restless heart. You lead us by still waters into mercy, and nothing can keep us apart. So remember your people, oh remember your children, oh remember your promises, oh God. Yeah, your grace is enough, your grace is enough, your grace is enough for me. Great is your justice, O God of Jacob. You use the weak to lead the strong. You lead us in your song of salvation, and all your people sing along. So remember your people, oh remember your children, oh remember your promises, oh God. Yeah, your grace is enough, your grace is enough, your grace is enough for me. Yeah, your grace
Hey, so I'm here with Frank Webster, and a lot of people know Frank, but Frank, our friendship goes back pretty well. I hope it's a friendship, not just
It
a,
is.
a working relationship. But so why don't you, how did we meet each other? Start there.
Well, best I can remember, way back in the 1900s.
It
Uh,
seems.
but back when you came in for a missions conference with the Indian Creek Association in Southwest Missouri, if I remember correctly, you and Terry Burke stayed at our house,
Yeah,
and we played
frisbee
cards.
golf.
Yeah, disc golf and all that kind of stuff, and had a great time.
You were pastoring at the time.
I was pastoring the church at Neosho, yeah, yeah, and but also the association's missions coordinator, so I put the missions conference together.
Yeah. Yeah, so you had us in. That's the first time we met you. That was our first real experience of a missions conference, and that's the idea of soliciting a bunch of churches to help in partnering in prayer, but then also financially. And
Yes.
that was known as the one that you had going there was known as one of the best in the denomination, and I think still is, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it is. In fact, I went for the first time this year as a missionary
Yeah,
uh, to the conference, and they raised a little over $40,000 at that conference.
that's great. So right after that, though, or not that far after that, you transitioned into a new job, and your new job was, what was your official title in that job?
The Missouri Free Will Baptist Missions Director.
Yeah. So you were in charge of or oversaw all of church planning out of Missouri or in Missouri. And that worked for me because I was from Missouri and I was church planning. So I didn't know anybody, and I knew only Frank Webster, and I was hoping that I could skate in on those coattails and see if that could be beneficial. And it turned out to be greatly beneficial,
Well, to
I would
both of
say.
us, I enjoyed being a part of what's going on there.
Yeah, yeah, because you were able to get us in countless churches in Missouri and in raising money and just sharing the vision of what's going on here in Greensburg. But it didn't stop there because I also remember that through that Indian Creek Missions Conference, that not only were you a connection that I made, but we also made the connection with the Macedonia Free Will Baptist Church, which
Yes.
has become, if I'm not mistaken, you then also orchestrated a trip where you brought some of them up here in the early stages of this church to kind of volunteer and help on a mission trip
Yeah.
many years ago.
Them as well as some group from the Neosho Church. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so you guys came up here, you partnered with us, but then also shortly after that, we bought this building, which you're very familiar with this building. You've seen it in its very pre days, and you
I
were here
remember the
the day
bar.
we purchased it.
Yes, that's true. Well, we was actually there the day before you purchased it.
Yeah,
Yeah, we had to wait until you actually signed the papers before we could start the demolition.
yeah, we called you from the office, said, "Hey, we signed the papers, the building's ours," and you had walls built laying down on the ground that you guys then began to throw up. And then that was how many trips after that did that turn into?
Ah, I've lost count. I'm going to say 5 or 6. So,
Yeah, and over the 12 years, 10 years, whatever that happened, you guys were here. You brought people countless times. You came by yourself countless times,
yeah,
and just a huge help in the early stages. And we don't need that help necessarily in the same way anymore because we had that help in the very beginning. But one of the things that we've got to do not that long ago was 2019. I believe you also originated this idea, right? You hit us up for the idea of a short-term mission trip, partnering with you. No longer necessarily anything to do with Missouri, but this time you were asking us to join you in Bulgaria.
yes. Yeah, that was the idea, is just try to get to more people connected with the Bulgaria work because it's just so unique. And so you guys jumped on board with that. I forget how many people went, but a vast majority from Keystone Church partnered with just a few of us out of the Lebanon Church. And we all went to Bulgaria and had a great time working in a park,
Yeah,
actually creating a park. So,
yeah, and then some more transitions have happened, and now you're doing something a little bit different. You're not directing missions in Missouri anymore. What is it you're doing now?
well, through a series of things that we really didn't plan on, we're now planting a church in Central Florida in an area known as the Villages. So we're tasked with reaching out to those that are 55 and up with the gospel. So we've got a house. We bought a house in a retirement community, which we did before we decided to do this. And then some months after that, we were contacted and asked about moving down there a few years earlier than planned, and seeing if we couldn't reach some of those from the Northeast that were moving into this area with the gospel.
Yeah, and so we got that letter and found out about you doing that work, and a really cool opportunity came up because you guys are getting ready to move into a building, and we're looking for some specific items to help with, and the advisory board here made the decision to support you and to jump on board there, which is so stinking cool to me because it started with you being a pastor in a church looking to support us, and then many, many years of support and dedication and so much help, and then also partnering with something overseas, but now we get to also turn around and return that. And that's just, how does that fit into your vision of what missions is supposed to look like in a church?
Well, it fits into what is so cool about seeing how God works. You can't do any, well, first of all, you can't do any mission work without partners. It just simply doesn't happen. You've got to have prayer support. You've got to have financial support. You've got to have those who are willing to just partner with you in friendships. That is vital to any mission work. But yeah, the aspect of this, me doing this here and you guys being a part of it, is just, it has brought tears to my eyes, literally. When I got the communication that you guys were even considering doing this, I was just blown away. I was so excited about that.
And the cool thing for me is that was, and I've shared this with you, Frank, but I'll say it here in this place. The cool thing about that for me is that wasn't my idea. That was an idea that the advisory board picked up and chose to do. Not that I was against it, definitely not. But it's that idea of, for me, here's what it looks like. Today's Mission Sunday, and Mission Sunday we focus on how we are giving as much as we can, doing as much as we can outside of the walls of the church. It's something that we've built into the DNA of the church from the very beginning. And the reason that we built it into the DNA of the church from the very beginning is because that's what you taught me. And then you have dramatically made an impact on the direction, the vision, and the focus of this church. And it's really cool that that we now get to see other people making that decision, and then it planning yet another church and being part of yet another work. So personally, I want to say thank you for just teaching the church what it means to be a mission-minded church.
Well, I'm glad that has happened, because that is God's heart. It is God's heart to be out there reaching as many as possible in as many places as possible, as quickly as possible. And that's a heart we're going to try to instill in the folks here. They have, many of those didn't even know where the book of Genesis is at. So now as we're teaching them about God's word, that's a part of it. And not just about us, but it's about whoever we can reach with the gospel.
Yeah. Hey, thank you so much, Frank, for what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing, because it's building that foundational stuff that I think is absolutely vital for many, many things in the future. So thank you very much.
Hey, anytime. I'm looking forward to this, a long-lasting relationship in any situation that God puts us in. Thank you so much, Keystone. We very much appreciate you.
I want to ask you guys to stand with us again. As you can tell, this Sunday is a very missions-heavy emphasis, and you're going to get to hear about more opportunities as we go through the service to get involved. But this morning, as we were singing, because we get together in the mornings and we practice our songs before service, and I was thinking as we were singing this song, it's called "How Can It Be?" And the word says, "I'm guilty. I'm ashamed of what I've done, what I've become. My hands are dirty. I can't even lift them up to the Holy One." But then the chorus says, "But you plead my cause. You right my wrongs. You break my chains. You overcome. You gave your life to give me mine. You say that I'm free, but how can that be?" And as I was singing through that, I was thinking about the opportunities that we have to be able to support missionaries who get to go the first time into these countries, and we get to be the missionaries sometimes who go into these countries. I got to be a part of the Bulgaria trip, and we got to have a church service with, it was a Muslim community in the village, and they sang songs and they did their dances that was part of their customs, and they gave us bread, which was a big deal in Bulgaria as a gift, and so we got to worship together with these people who had never really heard of Jesus before. What a cool thing to be a part of taking the gospel to somebody who has never heard, who has no idea, who's never touched a Bible before. And to say, you're living your life, but let me tell you how this can be so much easier. And the people are being responsive to that. There are people all over the world coming to Christ and learning who he is for the first time. We as Americans are very privileged. We know the story pretty well. Even if you don't really go to church, most people at least know of God and know of Jesus. But there's a lot of places who, I mean, I've heard people say, I've never even heard the name of Jesus. I've heard missionaries tell the stories. I've never heard the name of Jesus. I've never seen a Bible. And that's crazy to me in my American mind. But I was thinking about this song as we were practicing it this morning and thinking of it from a mind of somebody who has never heard of Christ before and has never heard the story before of God's love and God's sacrifice for them. And what a blessing as a church that we get to take part in that. We get to take part in sending people who can share the gospel. If we can't go personally, we can send. So we're going to sing through this song. Think about your own conversion, but also the fact that we get to be a part of taking the message to the world abroad and sharing the good news of the gospel. I am guilty, ashamed of what I've done, of what I've become. These hands are dirty, I dare not lift them up to the Holy One. But you plead my cause, and you right my wrongs. You break my chains, you overcome. You gave your life to give me mine, and you say that I am free. But how can it be? How can it be? And I've been hiding, afraid I let you down. Inside I doubt that you could love me, but in your eyes there's only grace now. You plead my cause, you right my wrongs, you break my chains, you overcome. You gave your life to give me mine, and you say that I am free. But
Well, good morning. We're going to change things up and do things a little bit different this morning. So hopefully you're comfortable and you're ready to go. We have a video that we want to show you. And then for those that are involved that are going to be up here during the video, we're going to quietly make our way on stage and get things set up. All right? Everybody got that? Thumbs up from everybody? Not everybody. No, don't just give random thumbs up. So here's what I want to let you know. A couple things. First of all, we are continuing our Big Steps of Faith series, the idea, but we're going to approach it from a little bit different perspective. This is as I've shared with you before, this is a church that was started on the principle and the idea of taking big steps of faith. And we were having prayer right before service, and Pastor Tom said that in his many years in ministry, one of the things that he said he's never done is, and he started thinking about it recently, is he's never taken a short-term, or he's never gone on a mission trip, is the way he said it. And I said, other than those two churches where you live the whole mission trip, that But anyway, so that's how it started. This church started like that, and at the very foundation of how this church started was other people all across the country, other countries even, that supported, prayed for, gave, served, all sorts of things, and that is from the very beginning. And then we've always said that if we are going to realize that, then we also have to realize that that is what we should also be. So we've set up what we call Mission Sunday. Our goal here at Keystone Church has always been, and continues to be, that 10% of everything that comes in should go outside the church, because we're not the only church. We're not even, I always struggle to say this, but we're not even the best church, and it's my favorite. But anyway, that's, but we're not even, we don't believe that we're the only one. We don't believe that we don't partner with other people, and we don't believe that the gospel is something that we're supposed to just flippantly deal with and it not be that big of a deal. We're not building a club that comes together and just hangs out and just does things together. That would be a foolish, terrible, terrible goal. But what we are is we're a body of believers that are in a relationship with Jesus Christ, and our goal is to try to bring as many people as we can into that relationship with Jesus Christ. That starts here, and then it starts across the world as well. So if in this idea, we've created Mission Sunday every year before this, even before we were a self-supporting church. What we did is we challenged the church to be a part of sending 10%. We would take up a special offering on Sundays. 10% of, the goal was to reach 10% of everything that we take in to send outside the church. This is the first year that Keystone Church actually voted to actually include this in the budget. So it's part of the budget, and it's all packaged together, so we're doing it no matter what. And so that's kind of been our goal. But with that, we've also, we have a few things that we partner with. We partner with a church in Tokyo, Japan. You saw Connect Church in Florida. You have the church in Buffalo, New York. And we also have a ministry that we've done for a while now in trying to support and encourage as many pastors as we can in the Greensburg area. This is how we try to reach out as much as we can. We added to that also, we have in the history of the church taken 2 short-term mission trips. All that's leading up to what we're going to show you right now. One of the first mission trips that we did, Pat and I had the opportunity to go with the team to Ecuador. And one of the fundraisers that we did to kind of set that up, if you'll remember, Pat, is we had a movie night here at the church, and we watched a movie, Into the Spear. Who's heard of the movie Into the Spear? It's about some missionaries that were trying to reach a tribe in Ecuador that no one had ever reached before. Their goal was to share the gospel with them. And so in that story, you know that Jim Elliott, Nate Saint, some of the others, when they finally made contact, the tribe actually murdered them on the beach there, making contact and them trying to share the gospel. And then shortly after that, the families of the people that were murdered went right back and tried to make connection, made connection, and was able to share the gospel with that tribe, reach them. If you haven't seen that movie, I encourage you to check out that movie and follow that story. But on this mission trip, we actually got to go to that place where all that happened, and it started in a really significant moment because we got to visit a house, and Pat, why don't you share a little bit about that to kind of, as the video will show a little bit, but give a little context for that. Yeah, you need a microphone. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's on. It's on.
Well, that was an incredible experience.
It's on. It's
on.
it's something back there. We're getting it.
We're working on it. It's hard to figure out where to start with that whole experience. What you're going to see is.
You want that one instead?
Sure, that's better.
Hey, it started working when I got it. What'd you do? Go ahead.
What you're going to see is I was almost, I think all of us were affected a little bit differently, but I was almost completely overwhelmed by, we read a book, I mean, the Hannah Project set that whole thing up for us. This really set the context. The movie helped to just all, explain and put us in really an understanding. But I guess the bottom line is, Pastor Nate said it already, they were murdered. They were murdered. And Sue's coming right up shortly, so brace yourselves. But again, to just set the stage and the mindset of, I so incredibly admire what they did. And I think, and there's a lot of instances that you'll see and probably what we'll hear, but these types of opportunities, I'll call them that, it's nice that we get to, and it's the Great Commission that we get to carry this message to the ends of the earth. But wow, brace yourself for the difference in you. I mean, I'm struggling to put that to words right now because my walk is completely different from where it was to where it is now. And this mission trip, this short-term mission trip, it's a week and the run up to it. And as Liz and I were talking recently, you didn't do anything to raise money. I did very little, quite frankly. We got a lot of help from outside the church. So responding to this call, I guess that's maybe where I'll leave this little intro. Responding to this call, it's something you can do. It's something you can do. And I'll talk a little bit later for a quick second when we get to that time where Pastor Nate was a catalyst for me. I would just offer, you don't need a catalyst. God will take care of it. Raising the money, the fortitude to go do it, the experience, he'll take care of all that. It's really just believing that.
So watch this as the team is making their way up to the stage, and we're going to share a little bit of what we have coming up here. Watch this video. Do you see which one it is? Do you see? Is it not playing? Of all things. Jamaica trip. Is it called Jamaica trip? Yep. Let's go there. It's going to work, I promise. Tested it 8 times before we began, so, surely. Is it just not playing? that video tested 3 or 4 times before we began, and it all of a sudden has crashed and decided it's not going to play. So Jeremy is a supercomputer guy, and he's going to fix it at some point, and it's going to be amazing. So just watch how that happens. So here we have the team that is decided to go to Jamaica. Our new trip that we are planning on doing this year is that we're going to go to Jamaica with the Hannah Project again. And, well, this is a small stage. We need a bigger stage, don't we? You got let me borrow that? Yeah, thank you. So this is the team that has decided that they're going to go to Jamaica. The Hannah Project is the group that we're going to go with. And I know a lot of people don't have context for that. So what I want to do is, Autumn, why don't you start out? Well, first of all, let's go down, and just so we have everybody that may not know everybody, let's start down here and then have everybody introduce themselves, and then I'm going to have Autumn tell you a little about the Hannah Project and then also the other organization. So you may have to pass the microphone down there.
I'm Jenna Altum. Do we say anything more?
No, that's good.
Suzanne Corty. Liz Newschwanger.
Pat Newschwanger.
Autumn Giljoy. Katie Kessler.
Liz Kessler.
Mandy Miller.
And Brandon Miller.
All right. So these are I know there's only 10. We have an 11th one. Josh Cease tested positive for COVID just like last night late. So he decided probably wouldn't be good to come. So he's not here. That's why I guess that's why we put the empty chair out for him. I don't know. It's an honor of him. But so these are the 11. This is the team that is going. To put that into context, you would have saw it in the video, but the video, of course, didn't work. But in Ecuador, there were 4 of us that went. In Bulgaria, how many went? Do you remember? 5? 5 from our church went to Bulgaria. So this is significantly different because this is much, it's twice as big if you're not doing the math there. And that's a big deal. And the reason that's a big deal, we'll get into all that in a couple of minutes. But like I said, we've partnered with the Hannah Project. So Autumn, why don't you take a second, tell about the Hannah Project and then what they are.
Okay, you're going to have to correct me if I'm wrong because,
You're good.
Well, I waited until last night to do my research. So, the Hannah Project is a nonprofit organization, and they have field workers around. They have like some in Ecuador, Bulgaria, Jamaica, El Salvador, and the field workers are there full time, but they send team members. So like we would be team members, and they do projects where they have clean water systems, and they construct schools and stuff, like do construction and emergency response refunds, I think.
Yeah.
So the groups like us would just go for a short time where the field workers are located, and they're just there to help. What do they say? What's their thing? Like help those in need.
Yeah. Yep, help those in need. It's a basically non-government organization work.
I forgot their motto.
Yeah,
Thing,
yeah.
really.
No, you're good.
Yeah.
You did great. So we also, so the Hannah Project is an organization that partners with organizations. So they, if you can imagine what it would be like to get workers overseas with all the different customs and all that kind of thing, the Hannah Project kind of handles that. The one that we're also partnering with is one that we've just recently learned about, and we don't know a whole lot about them, but the other one,
right?
go ahead.
Yeah, Okay, so Missions 418 is partnered with the Hannah Project, and so they're located in Jamaica, so they're like the field workers that are there full time, but they're partnered with the Hannah Project, and they've been there since, what, 2018?
Mm-hmm.
Missions 4, that would make sense. But it's a family, right? It's a family that leads it?
Yeah, the family leads it, yep.
Yeah, so they're just there to minister to the island full time.
Yep. So the work that they do is mainly through public schools and things like that. The schools are publicly funded, but are the way that it was described to us, run a lot by Christians, which if you don't know, that's how the public school system started in America also. So the funding is not that good, nor is the help that good. because as you'll hear more about this here in a couple minutes, I'm going to have Liz and Katie are going to tell you a little bit about Jamaica. And do you want to work your slideshow, or you want me to just push it as you go? Okay, so they're going to tell you a little bit about Jamaica, and
that's a lot smaller than it looks.
I know. See, it's a real struggle up here, isn't
The
it?
lights are really bright. But on a cold, and this morning it's not snowing, but wet Sunday, we can all imagine that it seems like a dream that we would want to go on a mission trip to Jamaica, because if you click the next slide, as we all imagine, this is Jamaica, right? I mean, it's paradise. It's tropical, and it's sunny, and it's warm, and a lot of people go there for dream vacations. Was a dream. But as we've researched and looked further into our particular mission trip, we've learned that it's not that way for many people, and actually most of the island, it is not paradise. Katie says a fourth is in poverty. So those are pictures that we actually pulled from the team that we think will be paired with, or the family that we will be going with. This actually has been pulled from their Facebook pages, so these are actual photos of the school and the children in the poverty conditions. As you can see there, that's a home. Go ahead, Nate. I cannot read that for sure. Okay, thanks. A major reason for poverty in Jamaica is the nation's long history of financial crisis and economic mismanagement from the government. Sounds familiar. The state of Jamaica started facing financial difficulties in the 1970s. The nation took a major hit when its overall reliance on bauxite mining was exposed by falling bauxite prices. And I've heard a lot of their streets and everything are deep red like that because it's one of the largest mining opportunities was happening in Jamaica, and that's where aluminum, as the cans represent it, that's what that's made of, aluminum. Next. We will be landing in Kingston, and hopefully this is correct. It's a 49-minute drive across the island, and according to my research, if we don't stay on the T1 or the T2, whatever it's called here, it can be a pretty dangerous ride across. Eddie lost it. Across the island to reach the center of the island, and you can see there's a picture there that's actually a police. There's a stop there, like a police are stopping people on the road. I'm not sure what they're checking for, but it can be a dangerous ride across the country. The average annual income in Jamaica ranges from $12,000 to $19,000 per person, and many making less than $9,000 per year. And that's actually an aerial view of Clarendon, which is the parish to which we will be doing our mission trip. This is just more pictures of the school children and the actual school that the family serves. Again, just more pictures there. Oh, actually, go back. That's a road. I don't know which side that is for you guys. Far right. They said they came around the corner one day and kind of instantly had to stop because the road was just falling off. I just love this picture of these little guys, and put the Bible verse up there. Open the eyes of my heart, Lord, I want to see you.
Okay, so for the mission trip, we have 11 people committed to go. Each person will have to raise $2,000, which is $22,000 for our whole team. The trip will take place June 9th through the 16th of this summer, and the expenses include Wheels Up in Pittsburgh to Wheels Down in Pittsburgh.
Just to kind of put that in perspective, it was, do you guys remember what Bulgaria cost off the top of your head? Do you remember? $2,100, and I think Ecuador was right at $2,500 per person, $2,300, something like that. And so if you can imagine why this would be such a big thing is because this many people, as opposed to the money that we had to raise before, because usually the way the Hannah Project works is that each person is responsible for their money. what we've decided as a team is that we're all responsible for each other. We go as a group, and we raise the money as a group. So we're fully aware that there will be some people that are able to raise more money because they're more connected to rich relatives and things like that. And then some of us just got poor relatives everywhere. But there's other people that will be able to help finance the trip themselves. And so you can kind of do the math here, and if you can bring up that graphic, the first one there. So here is what it looks like, our gold Jamaica temperature. If you can, it's a couple slides down there, Jeremy. You're trying to fix the video, aren't you? I can flip there. You just keep doing what you're doing. So here's the way that it stands. We have to raise $21,000 for this trip with 11 people going. So you kind of see how that works. So as of this morning, this was the start of what we're doing for the most part. So this morning, we have right now at the church, this amount of money has been raised and is brought into this trip. So we have $2,620 already raised without any real effort that goes into it. Some of you have seen on Facebook, there's also the chocolate-covered strawberries and that kind of thing. Lane, come on up. And then also, the church made a decision, the advisory board made a decision, and I'm going to have Lane present that. You have a microphone for him?
Yeah, Nate wanted me to come up and speak. Wow, these lights are bright. To come up and speak on behalf of the advisory board. When we did the 2023 budget for this year, we included, for the first time, a line for missions support. It's always been our philosophy to take 10% of what we take in here at the church and put it back out into the mission field in various forms. There was a line in the budget for $14,150 for missions support. There's nothing specifically earmarked for that, but I would think, as would you, and as does the advisory board, that a mission trip to Jamaica by 11 people from here would be the ideal type of project to support with some money from the church. This is not the church paying for the entire trip for everyone, with 11 people going and about $2,000 apiece. The folks on stage still bear the brunt of the financial burden, but the advisory board got together, discussed it, made some motions, and voted to allocate of that $14,000 to allocate $10,000 towards support of this trip.
That was the first these guys have heard about that. That was just decided, and so they did not know that was yet in the account. So.
This is a budgeted line item in our budget, and according to our Constitution and bylaws, the church doesn't actually have to vote on that. But we wanted to let you know that the board did make motions and vote on it and unanimously support the project and approved it. And we wanted to let you know all this just in the interest of transparency. There's more than ample money in the cash accounts right now to support it. We spent a lot of money for outside missions in the last year or two, but the Lord is kind to refill our coffers.
So this is all part of this idea. The reason that we're talking about this is because this is all part of the idea of what we're trying to make sure that we always realize is that God's not a God that is just, handicapped or ability taken away when things don't go exactly the way that we think or that we plan. God's a God that He says, hey, here's the promise. If you live my way, if you hold up what the Bible teaches, if you make that the search and the priority of your life, then I will supply all your needs and give all that you need. And so we believe that as individuals, and we try to live that as individuals. But if we're going to live it as individuals, we should also live it as a church, right? Yeah, sure, the electricity is going to be more expensive this year, and all sorts of costs are going to go up here at the church this year with inflation and all that kind of stuff. But if we just constantly spend our lives adjusting to that, thinking that we've got to make sure that we're careful there, then we miss out on the opportunity of what God's doing, where God says, if you're faithful, don't worry, I'll take care of the rest. And so this is a neat expression of what it means to be a church that is focused on missions, because as most of you know, the Bible gives all of us the mandate, right? It's not that this group, it's not that me, it's not that
whatever individual in whatever country far away is told that they're to be a part of missions. That's not the case. The Bible teaches that the disciples, all of us, that's something that we all do. We're all responsible for sharing the gospel. And some people stay and share the gospel. Some people give and share the gospel. Some people go and share the gospel. And then those roles change constantly over time. And so it's something that we've tried to build into the DNA of the church because it's what we believe, it's what we practice, but it's also what we should do as a church. So with that being said, what I have tasked these guys with doing is they've done a couple of different things. First of all, 5 of them stepped up and they decided to, your devotions this week, your 5 days worth of devotions that will be about missions and the focus of big steps of faith in missions and that kind of thing. 5 people stepped up and decided to write devotions. And so the devotions will go along with this idea, because what I want you to realize is that what we're trying to present is this is not us going on a Jamaica trip. This is all of us doing a Jamaica mission as a church. And it's neat that we all get to be a part of that. You're going to hear about opportunities of, and I think Liz will probably share a little bit more here in a couple of minutes. She's been in contact with the people in Jamaica. But you're going to, if you remember in Ecuador, we got to send over a bunch of medical equipment and different things like that. There was a water filtration system that we got to go over with. And the church got to be a part of that. So there's going to be a lot of opportunities where we can all get together as a group and we can all do this. And I'm really proud of this group. And the reason that I'm really proud of this group in this context is because pretty much all of them stepped up to the plate and said, I'll be willing to go before they ever knew where they were going or what they were doing. It's only in the last week, I would say, that we've learned kind of the specifics of where we're going, what we're doing, and all that sort of thing. And so that's in my mind, that's a pretty big, that's a gamble. Because how many of you guys have personally worked with the Hannah Project? Just me and you, right? Just me and Pat have worked personally with the Hannah Project. The Bulgaria trip was not through the Hannah Project. So to trust your safety and your well-being to an organization that you've probably never heard of up until this point, that's pretty big. And so I appreciate that they've decided to take this big step of faith and that they've stepped out. And I want them to kind of share a little bit about that. So I've hit them with some questions. Some of them are super excited about talking, and some of them are not excited about talking. And so there's always the struggle of what is it that we're going to do? And in other words, I know a lot of people, when they think about short-term mission trip, that's one of the things that you think about. Well, would I be able to add anything to the trip? Why would I go on the trip? And you see that we come from a wide variety of backgrounds here. And some of us may have some construction or some sort of expertise there. Others may have some others. But the trip is built around the idea of this is the group that's going. Here in a couple of weeks, there's another group for the Hannah Project that is on their way to Jamaica here in a couple of weeks. And that group is going to mainly be doing painting and working with children and things like that. So we will get a little bit more of the physical labor when we start to put our trip together here in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, I know. That's the majority of the stuff that these guys have signed up for. They don't know what they've signed up for, and I think it's fantastic that it works that way. And some are nervous about it, and some are not really nervous about it. But here's what I want to do. I want to ask them some questions, and they've kind of thought through some of these things. So they're gonna share a little bit from this perspective of big steps of faith and what it means to do this. They're gonna share a little bit about that. So, Autumn, let's start with you. Because you've already told us that you...
With what?
Huh?
With what?
Well, I got the question. Hold on. Calm down. This is right up Autumn's alley. She loves doing this. So, Autumn, how specifically does this trip, in your mind, impact your relationship with God, and how do you hope that it changes when you get back and it's just memories that you have?
Well, for me, I hope it helps give me the confidence to be able to come back and then be able to be more like open about my faith and be able to spread the gospel with more confidence that way. Because like going to Jamaica, like, and spreading the gospel, this is like nothing like I do. Like I don't do that I don't just talk about it all the time. And so like even at school and stuff, like that's like I sometimes like I just think, should I say something about church or not? Like, you never know. Like people, like
Yeah.
they judge you for that. So I just hope I get more confidence out of this for that. And I know all three of us have the same verse, but I was reading Matthew 28:19, and it says, what? It says to go and spread, to go and make disciples. So if you really believe what you believe, you should be doing that. So that's what I got.
Jeremy, if you don't mind putting Matthew 28 up there. Autumn is
Just
Autumn.
read it off of Katie's shirt.
she wore a great commission shirt. So, Autumn, you're how old?
I'm 17.
17. The first mission trip that I ever went, when I went to Mexico, I was about 16 years old, and got to go back when I was 18, and then Ecuador was, like I said, in 2017. For me, in my mind, that is, I don't remember a whole lot about the trip to Mexico because I have a memory problem. But at 16, experiencing that was something that dramatically impacted my life. I would say that the reason that I even thought about moving to Greensburg and being a part of that is because of the foundation that was started back then. So for me personally, and I know I don't mean to point them out as if it's a different sort of trip, but for me personally, I'm super, super excited about Autumn and Katie doing this because we have built into our family plan that when my kids turn 16, we plan on taking them on a short-term mission trip because it's something that impacted my life so much and changed so many things in my life. I want them to experience a version of that also because they're like me. They live here in America, and we get spoiled all the time. And so I'm thankful that they're going and glad that they made the decision to go because it's Autumn's idea of a big trip is Lancaster. So this is
This is not true.
so Mandy, you your perspective's a little bit different. You grew up in a church planting home. And you didn't really, how do you say this to be fair? You didn't really get the choice to be involved in missions or not be involved. You just grew up in it. And so with that perspective, why do you decide now, when you do get the choice and you have lived all those years in that version of it, why do you get the decision now to decide to go to this? Why does this matter? Because you also went, if I'm not mistaken, how old were you? 17 years old, you went to Tokyo on a mission trip with the denomination as well. So why is this different, and why does it make sense for you to go now?
I think for me it was I grew up in a home of church planners, but I feel like my parents did a really good job about they shared their burden. They didn't force their burden, if that makes sense. And so honestly, like, I had the job of cleaning the men's bathroom at the fire hall in Wexford when we were growing up, but it wasn't because I was necessarily made to. I wasn't like singing while I was doing it. I might have been, but that was life. It was like, so church planning in our home was normal. It didn't necessarily feel like a mission filled every day. If that makes sense? And so I did go to Tokyo, Japan, and that one was our mission. There was. Honestly, most of my time spent there was in Starbucks because in Tokyo, it's a different culture. And so the way that they reach people is by going to where they are. And honestly, like, a lot of that is at Starbucks. And so it was fun. We experienced a culture, but it wasn't necessarily a hard mission trip, if that makes sense. Like, it was, we weren't necessarily doing manual labor. We helped the church get started and all that, but it wasn't like for their first service. But it wasn't, we weren't scrubbing toilets like the Bulgaria trip was, and the work that they did in Ecuador. So going into this one, there's my verse. I was one of the three that had the verse. But so again, Matthew 28:19 and 20 says, Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. So for me, I feel like it's just an act of obedience. I can share my faith here, and I try to, but to go and actually work somewhere, my heart is honestly loving people that may seem not as lovable to some that maybe don't get to experience that love, a genuine love very often. Those are the people that I love to love on. And so Autumn had actually, when they were kind of talking about it in the beginning, and she's like, hey, I want to do this mission trip, you should go. So as now that I'm working with the teens, and then Autumn and Katie were going, and I told Brandon I don't know where we're going, but I would really love to be a part of it and experience this with the girls. And so Brandon's like, yeah, sure, we'll make it happen, we'll do it. And so the picture that you saw of Jamaica being paradise, that was Brandon and I in the center of it. This is my husband, Brandon, if you don't know. So last year we were there. We were celebrating our 10-year anniversary. And it was a completely different trip. Yes, we were in paradise. We were at all-inclusive. But while we were there, we were discussing the people that are serving us. We wonder, while they're at the resort, they've got their nicest, they're nicely dressed. They look great. And we discussed while we were there, I wonder what their life looks like once they leave this resort. What home, we're going to this amazing room. We have this, it was paradise. And so it genuinely, but we thought, okay, so yeah, they get to experience the cleanliness here, and they have the clean water to drink while they're there. But what's it like once they get outside of there? Because it took us 2 hours to get to the resort from where we flew in. And so we got to see firsthand the poverty there and the conditions that they were living in. And we watched kids. It was the craziest thing because we would go for what seemed like miles, and the kids, because they all had different uniforms on, and so seemed like you would watch them go for miles walking into the same village. And so as we're flying, we're going real fast in our shuttle bus, and these kids are just walking you would see these kids in the same uniforms for miles. And so what was cool to me is that I fell in love with the island, and we got to know some of the people while we were there for a week. So some of the workers, we got to know them, and we're like, oh, wonder what their life is like. And so when I signed up for it, when I said, okay, I want to do this, we had no idea where we were going. But to me, I think I love the fact that how God worked this out, that whenever Jamaica was brought up, I was like, ooh, yeah, I'd really love to go back there. And yes, it's going to be completely different than what I experienced last year, and I love that part of it. Because last year, we went to be served, and this year, I'm super excited because we get to go and we get to serve those people in that island that we fell in love with. And so I love how God worked it out that almost exactly a year later, we're going to be able to go back there and serve those people that were serving us. I mean, not specifically maybe, but the country that served us last year, we get to go and we get to serve them now.
Brandon, we haven't talked about this except for in getting ready for this, but the first time that we planned a trip to Ecuador, you're one of the people that I approached and talked about going on the trip. You thought about it for a long time. You kind of spent some time with it. You ultimately decided not to go. So I want to ask, because there's a lot of people that have in the back of their mind the idea of going and maybe didn't go on this trip and maybe have future plans of going, or maybe just are teasing the idea. First of all, I want to ask you, do you still think about that decision? Not necessarily regret the decision, but and then why you were a late addition on the trip this time? You were the last one that jumped in, and I think after Mandy gave you permission, you jumped in. And no, I'm just kidding. But you kind of jumped in at the last minute on this trip. So how is this big step of faith different than what made the decisions before? How's this one different?
Well, first off, Barbara Walters, you asked me 3 questions in one. So I'm going to have to break down my answers. And this is going to get a little bit wordy, sorry. But the Ecuador trip, I would have loved to have gone on that trip, just because, and hopefully I'll bring us all full circle, but I have a lot of thoughts in my mind. But I would have loved to have gone, and same with Bulgaria, because I think this is what we're supposed to be doing. I think helping outside these walls is what we're supposed to be doing, and I think that I can help outside these walls. Mandy and I made a decision at that time. That was when before Jonathan was born and the Zika virus was a thing, and they didn't know how that was affecting pregnancies. So we made a decision for me not to go. But yeah, those guys had an incredible time. I wish I would have been there to experience with them. This time I was a late addition, and I was a late addition because everything fell into place for me. I wasn't able to make the decision to go without some of these other things happening, like
Well, first off, like Mandy said, my number one concern was I really wanted Mandy to be able to go with Autumn and Katie. I wanted her to experience that with them. So obviously that then leaves our kids that need someone to watch after them, even though I'm not the number one best choice for that. But Tom and Pam stepped up, and it just became available that they were going to keep our kids. So they are in great hands while we're gone. And the other thing for me is, since I get such a long summer break being off with the school, we don't have a ton of time to take off throughout the year. So if it was during the school year, I really couldn't have made that happen. But once we found out that it was during the summer, then and it was like all these things fell into place. Now I say all that because my verse that I'm going to share in a little bit just of my overall testimony, I think it all goes in together, but just things falling into place. And the last question was the step of faith. And I personally, I struggle to say that this is a step of faith for me in the terms of, like, I know some people sitting up here are probably like really fearful about going or have different doubts or the money. None of those things really bother me. I don't feel like it's leaving my comfort zone to get on a plane and then get on a bus. And we're going to be in this country of extreme poverty, but like we said, we were there last year, so to me, it doesn't feel like I'm stepping out and doing anything crazy. You know, I'm just going to go and try to do my best to help out. And I've seen my entire life things fall together, that when God has his hand on something, that it kind of just, it works out. So that number that was on the screen earlier, the $22,000, if that number was $60,000 and God wanted it to happen, it would happen. I just simply don't concern myself with that anymore, because throughout my life I've seen it. Now, my wife used to give the example that when we're short on money, she'll pray, and normally what happens is the next day my phone rings and then I have a job. So don't start praying just yet. But that's just, in our life, that's the way it's always happened that way, that there's always been a job, there's always been work. And quite frankly, I feel like if God wanted me to raise all this money on my own, that the work would be there and it would be provided for. Whatever tool that he uses, I think it'll happen. But getting into, I'm trying to keep this short, I know it's going long. But I remember a time when I was a teenager and I was coming to this church, and all these missions trips, all these groups came, all these groups of men, and they came and they worked on the building. They put those walls up. Frank, who you saw earlier, me and my dad and some Nate and Tommy, we did the ceiling in the back. I did that with Frank. We did the towel in the back. I remember hanging the drywall in here, just with different groups of guys that took time out of their lives to come help us out. Since I witnessed that, I've always wanted to do this. I've always wanted to repay the favor, and obviously construction is my skill set, so I've kind of always wanted a trip that I get to go and do construction. At that time in my life, you know, everybody's going to college, and everybody from high school and the teenagers everybody has everything figured out, you know, or at least we think we do. And I had nothing figured out. I really didn't. I think I learned from my dad that you just get up and you go to work. And I didn't desire to go to college. I knew that wasn't for me, so I just started going to work. And now I get to work with kids that have the same mindset as I did, and I think it's great. But I just started going to work, and at that time I was wrestling with some things. I went and visited the Bible college with Nate, and then I felt just like empty with what am I going to do. And Nate told me, he said, look at the story of Moses. He said he spent 80 years in the wilderness wandering around before God told him now's the time. So I kind of cling to that at that time of my life, and I just started doing what I knew how to do and just going to work. And I'm extremely blessed that doors opened through that, and that I am where I am today. So my verse is Exodus 3:13 and 14. Then Moses said to God, if I come to the people of Israel and say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you, and they ask me, what is his name? What shall I say to them? God said to Moses, I am who I am. And he said, say this to the people of Israel, I am has sent me to you. So I guess to summarize everything, that just throughout my life, God has opened doors, and currently, where I am the late addition to this trip, it was just another door was opened, and doors have been opened that weren't the right door to walk through, but this one in my life right now, for where I'm at, it's the right decision for me to join the team and go on board. And then I'll finish with this. My goal, my hope for this trip is through my current job and through hard work and labor is kind of what I've learned to be work. And I know that that's not necessarily correct, that some of us make a living by being behind a computer all day. But I've just always equated it with hard work. And throughout the past 2 years of my life, I'd say, now I still work pretty hard in the summertime, but I'd say that we've been blessed with an abundance, and life has kind of got cushy for me. Do any of you know what I mean? That we live in America, and we're in most of us are in fairly cushy situations. And I equate that to like hard work. When I'm at school, if I don't want to lift something heavy, then I send my kids over there to pick it up. So for me, it's changed from 10 years ago when I had to physically earn every dollar I made. And to be quite honest with you, I hope that they work the fool out of me while I'm in Jamaica. I don't want to go there. I want to be reminded that life isn't always just comfortable, that the comfort that I'm experiencing now truly is a blessing. So hope that answers.
I think what you're saying is you'll carry my bags. Thank you.
Yep.
So we running a little bit low on time here. You guys, I know that you guys, and it's fine. No, you guys, this is cool because if you don't know, Liz and Katie are a mother-daughter team going, and that's neat. I think that's really neat. Why is that, Liz? If you don't mind sharing, or Katie, whoever, why is that important to you? Go for it.
Okay, so for me, I think this is a step in the direction of like personally choosing to be a follower of Christ and not just a follower of my parents, who are obviously followers of Christ. As a child, obviously my parents have always been there to lead me in my walk of faith, but as you grow up, you have to start making those big decisions on your own. And with no hesitation, I can say that I forever want to seek God. I talk about in my devotion wanting to transform my relationship with God from less of a discipline to more of a desire. And sure enough, I was given this opportunity to go on this trip, so I took it, and I'm running with it.
And to follow up on that, I'll read this. I chose Proverbs 23, 24, and 25, completely independent of Katie's devotion. We actually hadn't talked about any of this until last night, so this is just another way to show how God orchestrates. It says, "The father of a righteous child has great joy, and a man who fathers a wise son rejoices in him. May your father and mother rejoice. May she who gave birth to you be joyful." Verse 24 is straightforward. The father of a righteous child has great joy, and a man who fathers a wise son rejoices in him. Any parent who's been there certainly appreciates the feeling. Verse 25 follows the same theme, but is directed at all of us sons and daughters. May your father and mother rejoice. May she who gave birth to you be joyful. The focus here is joy and rejoicing in our children based on their decisions and choices. It's not about our love for them. At the baptism of Jesus, the Father spoke from heaven and said, "This is my Son, whom I love. With him I am well pleased." The Father's love for his Son was based on the Father's own character. The Father's being well pleased was based on the Son's character. Parental love should be unconditional, and that's based on the nature of the parent. Parental joy in their children would be centered on the nature of the children, their decisions and their choices. And so when Katie came forth and said, "I want to go on this," she knew that for me, she's our miracle child, and it would be very hard for me to let her go unprotected from her mom. And she actually said to me, "Mom, do you really want to go?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, of course I want to go. Like, I've always wanted to do this, and I've always wanted you to do this." And she said, she's like, "Good, because I really want you to be there." And so this morning, we hadn't rehearsed anything, and she said, "Okay, well, when it's our turn to talk," I said, "Okay, well, I'm going to say my thing, and you can chime in." She said, "No, I'm going to say my thing, and you can chime in." Which is perfect for this, because I really want this to be hers, and I really want to be, like in the video at the beginning of the sermon when Nate was talking with the pastor, he talked about life coming full circle, and for us, this is an experience where I've all her life, held her hand and pushed her forward, and raised her to be an independent, beautifully strong, wonderful woman who loves Christ. And now she's holding my hand and she's tugging me along for this trip. So we're so thankful that the church has blessed us with the opportunity.
Well, we're very much out of time. So, yeah, Sue, do you have anything you want to add? Or I know you're really excited. You were the most excited about talking. And
Well, you know what happens is I get so worked up. And other times when this has happened, by the time I get to talking, I can't shut up. So this would not be the time for me to say what I have to say. I do have a lot to say, though. And I was
sure.
ready, but
And you will hear more about this. You will hear more about this. But as quick as you guys can, Pat, you've already talked, so let's give Liz the opportunity. How about as quick as you can? Why don't you wrap this up, Liz? Why is this, as a church, why is this a big step of faith as a church?
as a church, this is a big step of faith because even through little steps will turn into big steps. Mark 9:41, if anyone gives you even a cup of water because you belong to the Messiah, I tell you the truth, that person will surely be rewarded. When I talked with Len Scott this week a little bit, and it was random, it wasn't planned that Len was going to reach out to me. It was just a random opportunity, and Len Scott is the missionary that's in Jamaica. Amy Scott is his wife. I will be talking with Amy Scott here in a couple weeks, but going to Jamaica is a big step for me. Going to Bulgaria was a big step for me. Each step is a bigger step because I know how I come back here after each mission trip. My heart is overflowing all the time, and with each trip, it just gets bigger and bigger, and I want to do more, and I want to do more, and not only going to mission trips, but in the church and in the communities. The week that we're going to Jamaica in June, the children there will be taking their final exams. So we may not be able to get into the schools right away, but we will probably be able to get in to serve them breakfast. And I don't know about any of you, but I remember when I was in school and the jitters for taking final exams were for real. So hopefully we can get in there, pray with the kids, do devotions with the kids, give them breakfast, make them feel welcomed, and ease their minds a little bit before they get to go into their final exams. Sunday, whenever we're there, the first Sunday that we're there, well, the only Sunday, I guess, we will be visiting the infirmaries and the nursing homes. These people are people that are older, mostly, and my heart for elderly people is, I'm so looking forward to it, and I don't know if that picture is available for that one. Okay, no. So there was a picture on the loop of a woman that I just cannot wait to meet when we get to Jamaica. She looks as though she has, the picture that she was in, she looks like, there she is. That smile, like, I just wonder at that moment if she was thinking of Jesus. A lot of people that are elderly that go into nursing homes, they think that it's the end of their lives, that there's nothing left for them. But really, it could be the beginning of their lives. It could be the beginning of them knowing Jesus, the beginning of eternity for them. So we're going to go and we're going to love on them and get to talk with them and make them feel special too. So that's really what we're looking forward to.
If you guys don't mind, you can. Thank you very much. Thank you. Sure.
I'll be super fast. I'm just going to ask, I didn't even ask Nate about this, but I'm going to ask for a special prayer. We'll obviously ask for prayer, but for just the, I guess, kind of spiritual attacks that, for those of you who know me, I am somewhat of an anxious person, by somewhat, like, really anxious. I've had more headaches and more body pains that I think something is wrong since I've said yes. And I think it's just Satan messing with my mind of, like, I've committed to this. And so I know that some of us have experienced some of that. So I'm just asking for special prayer over our team as now that we have said yes, that we can move forward confidently in God.
We're gonna end with that prayer, but if you guys don't mind, thank you. So the praise team's gonna come back. So thank you guys. We're gonna end in prayer, but here's the point. Here's the point of it all right? Our goal this year is that we're going to do a better job at presenting the idea of Mission Sunday. The last Sunday of every month is the Sunday that we've designated for us to focus in prayer and our attention on what we're doing outside the church walls. Some of it is far away, some of it seems insignificant, and some of it is pretty major. And over time, the story is told that the way that this church got started is because other churches in Missouri and all across the country had that same idea and they believed that same thing. So they prayed, they gave, they heard about missions. And when they heard about it, then God began to convict them and move them in that direction. And so now, years later, this church exists because of that. But not only that, but one of the people that has been absolutely pivotal in helping us start this church is now a church planner. And we have joined in, and this church, which was a place where we were trying so hard to get the funds to stay afloat and then to exist, is now sending funds to Florida to plant a church there. But not only that, we're also doing things that don't make any sense. Going to Jamaica with this crazy idea that we think that we're going to, and you kind of get this idea, we're going to bowl over Jamaica, and it's going to be totally different when we leave. And the reality is that we're going to go and we're going to show Jesus, and it's going to be incredible, and things are going to happen, and we're probably never going to hear about what happens. But we're going to come back here, and then God's going to work something incredible inside of us. But not only that, but as a church that's sent, God's going to do something incredible inside of the church as well. So it's a team effort. It's the long game. It's about us believing what the Bible says, which is where Jesus said, hey, what you're supposed to be doing is going and make disciples. And sometimes going means actually going, and then sometimes going just means helping people go, supporting people to go, all of that sort of thing. So from us as a team that is going to Jamaica, what we're asking for you to do, we'd love for you to partner with us. You already have. The $10,000 gift is a huge step in that direction. Some of you may want to join in a different way. Some of us personally, the plan, we're kind of changing the plan that we were going to do today up. But the plan was that we were going to talk about Faith Promise and people joining in and supporting, and then some things have changed there in that because now we have this gift from the church. But we want to ask you, if you would like to partner in helping with the mission trip, then sure, part of the budget goes towards that, but you can also help. You'll find a drop-down menu on the app in the place to give, and you can support. But not only that, don't just worry about supporting us. We also want you to consider maybe next year you're the team that goes. Maybe we do another trip next year, and then God starts to work and raise people up, and then you see what happens, and then there's more people that say, okay, I think that things have happened in life that, as Brandon was sharing, that some things have fallen into place, and maybe it's my turn to go now. See, we're not just worried about this, but we're worried about what God's doing and what God's designing in the past, but then also in the future, and then also on this trip. So it's a part of being part of what God's doing. And that's an incredibly, incredibly humbling perspective. Here's why, real quick. Because there's a new song out. This sounds so corny. Dolly Parton wrote a new song. So relevant, isn't it? But Dolly Parton wrote a new song, and the title of the song is Don't Make Me Come Down There. And it's a perspective of God saying, I'm sick and tired of the way that you guys are acting, so don't make me come down there. And it's from this parenting perspective of, your parents always said when you were rowdy or whatever, don't make me come in there. And so I'm going to come down there and I'm going to straighten it out. And everybody thinks this is a great song, and I think it's such a poor view of God. Because I get the perspective behind it and everything, but I grew up in that culture. But I think the more beautiful picture of God is the God that invites us to the mountain that he's on, but not only that, came down to save us. Before punishment, suspending punishment, he said, there's salvation. And the picture of a stooping God should bleed over into us being people that are also always stooping and serving. So that's my hope, that we as a church become people that are constantly realizing that God stooped to save us, and we're trying desperately to keep that same posture, serving as many people as we can. And the greatest thing we have to share, hey, Jesus died on the cross to save you from your sins. So if you don't mind standing with me, we're going to pray for the team that's going, and then we're going to go right into the song service and then finish up the service. Thank you so much for listening and giving us the opportunity to share. But God, I ask right now that you, first of all, that you continue to work. We're not a church that just wants to hear your word and then feel good about it in that moment. We want to put action to what we believe. That's what this whole series was about. And we said we were going to challenge ourselves. God, I don't want to forget that message. I don't want to forget that message that says faith is action. Some action is bigger than others, but faith definitely moves. So God, will you show us that you have offered us a spot in the story that you're writing? The most beautiful story of the God that saves broken humanity. God, do an incredible work in these 11 people. Do an incredible work here at Keystone Church as we send these 11 people. Please do an incredible work in Jamaica as we get to be a part of just something that is going to be beautiful. May it forever be ingrained in our minds that we're just a part of the story that you're writing. And it's for your glory. We love you. It's your name we pray. Amen.
Hide me now under your wings. Cover me within your mighty hand. standing on the promises of God. Thank you, guys. You can be seated.
All right, thank you so much for being here to worship with us today. We've got a few quick announcements. I'm going to do it in reverse today. So Saturday, February 11th is going to be the Valentine's Day dinner here. It's $12.50 a person, and you can pay that when you come that day, or even on the app. There is a drop-down option for that. Next week is going to be the life groups, and that will be here Wednesday at 7 o'clock. And this week is going to be our service week. So not everyone is able to go on the mission trip. That doesn't mean that there aren't people right here outside our doors that need help. You can always come here to the church. There are things always that need done here at the church. But there are people in our community as well that you can go and serve. It doesn't have to be an organized thing to serve people. And I think it's important to remember that there are people in the community. There are a lot of different organizations. You can just call them. You can go to their door and ask how you can help. Connie, I know, can always use help at Greater Things. And, maybe you're not sure where you can help. So not that I'm an expert on everything that's going on in the community, but there are different places in the community in Greensburg. There's a Welcome Home shelter. And I know they can always use donations there, food and different donations. And another thing, Connie can also give more information, is that there are a lot of homeless people and families in Greensburg. A lot of us, we don't see that. But it is here. It is in our community. And a lot of those families, they will have organizations that will help them to stay at different hotels in our area. One of those is the Knights Inn in Greensburg. A lot of homeless families stay there. Connie has made it part of her mission to take meals there, to take food there for families. She told me a story that once she went in and there was a family with four children, and they were staying in one room. And she was able to take a meal for their family, and it was the most amazing thing to them, just to have a hot meal that day. So if you're not sure where you can help, there are places like that where you could go, take food. There are people there that need you. There are people there that need to see Jesus. And I think it's important that when you want to help and you're not sure where God needs you, ask him. Pray and ask him where he can use you, and he will answer that. Nick shared a story with me. He was watching a fishing video. I don't watch fishing videos, but he wanted me to watch it and had me listen. He's like, I'll fast forward through the fishing part. So he fast forwarded through that, and I agreed to listen. And the gentleman at the end of his fishing, exploits, told a story about, his endeavors, how he was going, and I know we're running late, but I think it's important. He was going to a fishing tournament, and on the way there, he had a flat tire. So, which resonated well with me because we had 2 flat tires on 2 vehicles this week. So he filled the tire, went to the tournament, came back out. The tire was flat, filled it up again, and had dinner with someone there, and then ran across the street to the gas station to fill the tire again. Well, he didn't have enough quarters for the machine. So he went in, and there was a gentleman in front of him that had put, I think it was $1.83 in gas in his vehicle because that's all that he could afford. Well, the guy that was fishing, he heard that, and he said that he felt God telling him to put another $20 on the pump so that guy could get wherever he needed to. And he went out and he told the gentleman, and he was so beyond thankful because the $1.83 was all he had to put in his car for gas. And so he went to put, more air in the tire, and he said that he still felt God telling him to do more. And so he hurried up and flagged down the gentleman, and he gave him $100. And the man, it just changed his life because he was in a place where he had no idea how he was even going to get through the next day. And this gentleman listened to God. He did what God told him, and he changed someone's life in that one day, probably in that 10 minutes, because he listened. He served someone else in his community. The story goes on about it was a rock in the tire and all that crazy stuff, but I took from that every day we encounter someone that we can serve. We just have to open our eyes and listen to God, and he will tell us who needs to see him and where we can best serve our community. So I'm sorry, it was a long-winded closing, but as we're talking about service, I just want everyone to know that every single one of us here, we can serve someone, whether it's an organized way of serving someone or way we just listen to God. He will provide that, and he will tell us who we need to serve. So thank you again for joining us. The praise team is going to do a song closing, and I hope that you all have an amazing week.
You guys stand with us. We're going to close out. Oh, Mr. Mike. Yes, I almost forgot. Thank you. Mr. Mike is going to come around and take up the ties for this morning. We're going to close out singing about the blood of the